Let me introduce my guests quickly. Earlier on, I talked about the theme for today. We'll be dissecting the 2013 budget. Tope Fasua, the CEO at Global Analytics, is the guest on my immediate left. Good morning, Mr. Fasua, and good to see you again.
Good morning, viewers.
Mr. Ilyas Gashinbaki, a global partner at Discovery Cycle Professionals, is also joining me today. Good morning, Mr. Gashinbaki.
Good morning, Nancy.
We started the discussion, isn't it?
Yes.
And this is the part 2 of it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I told our viewers in the past few days that we'll continue to look at the budget. So I intend to continue it as a series, and let's see where we end with it. That probably government would listen to us, you know, and
we hope so. Effect
some changes or put in some essential ingredients. Okay, I think we should start from, let me take a look at it this way. I know a good budget should be simple, a good budget should be comprehensible, a good budget should be reasonable, a good budget should be measurable, a good budget should be achievable. Now, Mr. Gashinbaki is smiling. Why are you smiling? Isn't it what a good budget should be? A good budget in quote. Sure. Do you think that the budget crafters, the Nigeria budget crafters, have put in place the essential ingredients, like I said a moment ago, to deliver this objective, these objectives that I've mentioned: simplicity, reasonableness, and being achievable, being comprehensible, what have you? Mr. Fasua, let me start with you.
Thank you for the question. Well, I think I'll probably approach it by saying that the problem with budgeting in Nigeria, of course, goes far beyond the issue of 2013. The same issues will probably be discussed in 2014, 2015. The same issues we've been discussing for God knows when. You know, usually I refrain from discussing budgets because usually, like it is meant to be an intention of what the government intends to do. I've been involved in budgeting processes, not at the governmental level, in the private sector level, and to a large extent it's the same. Anybody can actually come forward and say, let's paint good pictures. You know, there's something I even picked up from Father Matthew Kuka in one of his recent speeches. He mentioned what's the PowerPoint civilization. All right, it's a scenario where someone comes and presents a wonderful PowerPoint, you know, and say, look, this is what we tend to achieve. And he said that those things never leave that PowerPoint, that, you know, it never leaves the computer system that you use to do the presentation, and of course, it never gets achieved. And so, well, if you want to look at it in academic terms of whether the budget seems to be achievable and whether it's reasonable and what have you, yes, you have to say, yes, you know, the people who have done this are smart people. They've put together budgets that look very nice on paper, but there's a fundamental defect with the budget or with our budgeting processes. And indeed, if we're able to solve that problem with the budgeting process and the making of budgets year on year, we would have ended up solving a whole lot of problems in Nigeria. There's a structural problem that the budget does not address, that no budget can address, except you go back and say, what is behind the budget? What exactly, where are we heading to? The last time I was here talking about this issue of budgeting, I did mention the fact that we need a fundamental unity of purpose, you know, in Nigeria in order to say this is where we're heading. Of course, the budget generally will tell you this is what we intend to do in the next 1 year. But in that budget, the budget represents a lot of the problems that's wrong with Nigeria. Most of the figures that you're going to see, no matter how rosy they are, a lot of the figures embed the corruption that's our main problem. They embed the tribalism that we talk about, the disunity that we talk about. They embed all those things. Okay, in fact, I did list here some of the issues that pertain to this budget. For example, project ephemerality, for example, when you're talking about vanity projects. So no matter how rosy that budget looks today, a lot of the projects that are being proposed to be financed are vanity projects. Almost all the states, when the governor comes in, the first thing they do is what? Governor's house. So they built a governor's house, you know, something that's out of this world. Someone told me about one of the states in the Middle Belt which the governor's house is perhaps the best real estate he has ever entered in life. And this guy that's speaking actually has been to a few real estates. Okay, the other day I saw a dealer of one of the local governments in Plateau State. That's the latest Sequoia, you know, very massive car. You probably say it's like 25 million or 30 million. If you bulletproof, it's about 50 million. That's what we're waiting for. And so if you budget for those kind of things, vanity projects year on year, are you going to achieve anything? So if you look at this, oh, can we actually achieve it? Yes, maybe we can achieve it. We're saying, oh, we want to spend money from, we want to get money from the crude oil and spend the money, and then, okay, how much are we getting from crude oil? How much is Nigeria custom delivering? Okay, how much do we intend to spend? And there's always this opening from IMF and World Bank to borrow some more to finance your vanity. So it's a madness going on in Nigeria.
Okay.
Of course, it's not going to be easy. So I've mentioned project ephemerality very quickly. Okay. Then secondly, we usually our people say where I'm from that if you build houses and you don't build your children, the children will sell that house that you built for cheap. So I think that to a large extent, the Nigerian government has not been building the people and have been building so-called infrastructure. And we see the way people destroy infrastructure willfully. Go around Abuja and see how many of the lampposts have been destroyed by crazy drivers who speed anyhow and have serious accidents. And then they just, at times if they can survive, they just walk away. And nobody actually says, look, you can't destroy government property. So there's a need to build the people. Okay, for example, look at the ugly incidents of the Alu 4, those 4 boys that were killed and roasted in Port Harcourt, you know. Okay, now the hundreds of people who gathered around that lynching of 4 university students, okay, they are Nigerians. They most of them live in Port Harcourt. Port Harcourt and Rivers State happen to be one of the states that have been collecting the highest revenues for the past at least 12 years. Even in the days of the military, they had Umpadek and what have you. That tells you that the money is not getting to the people that it should build. Because if these people were educated, if they had their humanity intact, if they had a vision for themselves, if they had not lost hope in who they are, then they would not lynch and roast 4 people. The same Port Harcourt around that Ahoada side, a few months ago, 200 people were burnt to death, scooping fuel. That is the place where the crude oil is extracted. And they have been getting huge allocations. So we cannot keep blaming the past for too long. The point is that the government, we're not spending money the right way we should. Vanity projects, government houses, pilgrimages, which finance loads of pilgrimages. People want to go. Even in the Islamic injunction, for example, for the Muslim one, it says that when you must go to this, you go to this pilgrimage when you think you have achieved. You have achieved enough, you have your money to go for them. It doesn't say that government should be forcing people for pilgrimages, whether Christian or Muslim. Now, these are the things we are budgeting for. So, in terms of achievability, in terms of getting the crude oil money, of course, there's a huge argument now about what benchmark, whatever, maybe you're going to get there, let me not preempt you, okay? So the point is that you cannot say, oh, we're so lucky we have this crude oil we're selling. Once we sell it, so much money comes in. But what are you deploying the money to?
Okay.
So that's the point.
You've established what we started that day.
Yes.
You said that there's a structural defect in Nigeria's budget process or in Nigeria's budgeting. Tope Fasua has just enumerated some other probably ancillary areas that Nigerians are not looking at. He's coming from another angle that we need to invest in our people. Because if we do invest in our people, the 4.9 trillion that President Goodluck Jonathan is budgeting for next year will make much more impact. Where if we now take a look at it, the budget of the past few years, or the budget since I can remember, hasn't really touched the lives of Nigerians. Because if it has touched the life of Nigerians, the Abuja-Lokoja road will not be there for many years as I can remember. The East-West road will not be as deteriorated as it is right now. Yes. I can go on and on. Tope has just said it, vanity project. Where do we go from here? How do we begin to fix such structural defects? It's a food for thought, isn't it?
It is. Nancy, as I said earlier, when was I here? Monday? Yeah. And I'm glad that Tope has canvassed similar views. We are dealing with structural defects that need to be corrected. So we have gone beyond the numbers now in budget, because it doesn't make sense when even the laws that are there are not being followed. For example, let me explain to you before I even give this example. The budget process, this is the way it runs. According to the Fiscal Responsibility Act, at least 6 months before the end of the financial year, the national government, the central government, is supposed to present the medium-term expenditure framework, the MTEF. Now, that MTEF has 2 components. Component A addresses the microeconomic aspect, and then component B addresses the fiscal strategy paper. Now, as we speak, for the 2013 budget, the MTF is supposed to be 3-year documents. As we speak, that document is still in the National Assembly, although it was submitted late. But the MTF needs to have been passed before even the annual appropriation need to be submitted, according to the fiscal responsibility law. So we are in the breach of virtually everything, even the laws we created. That's a fundamental breach. We are still struggling with which benchmark to use. The National Assembly is saying this, the executive, they have proposed 75, and it's neither here nor there. But fundamentally, let us address the structural defect.
How do we address it?
I'm having the courage to say, this is the problem and address it. Because, and I think that's the hypocrisy. We are playing the ostrich when it comes to fundamental issues. We already know that structurally, Nigeria will not be able to fund development if we go with the lopsided nature of recurrent capital budgets as it is. Now, in the preparation of the budget, before the MTF is prepared, the medium-term sector strategy, the MTSS, that was an inroad that, if properly done, would have given us a budget that is good. In the sense that, at that stage, that's where you measure the input, the output, all the processes, need to, the objectives, the key policy objectives need to be key in there properly, the grassroots consultations, all those things need to be properly done in a manner that we know that this is actually implementable. Even M&E, monitoring and evaluation, is part of the MTSS process. So as long as those processes are not properly done, you will now have an MTF that is not pro-poor, an MTF that is not development friendly, an MTF that is lopsided to the recurrent, which will not deliver a development. And eventually, by the time you now sit down to say, let me now do the annual appropriation, because that 1-year budget is drawn from the 3-year medium-term expenditure, the MTF. So you discover that it's still the wrong step, because the foundation is actually wrong. So I absolutely concur with him. Let's address the structural issue. Courage is the word.
Because I was coming to that. In as much as we're saying there is a deficiency,
yeah.
How do we address such deficiency? Of course, for a child that has probably sores in the mouth or so, you may say the child is suffering from scurvy or vitamin C, lack of vitamin C.
Yeah.
You give the child fruits or you give the child vitamin C tablets, isn't it?
Yeah.
But for this one now, are you saying that courage actually is the key for us to solve the structural defects? Or Mr. Fasua, do you have other?
Oh, certainly. That I'm
you just exclaim like,
you know, they say you exclaim in your native language.
Yes, actually, that you sound like a typical Yoruba man.
So basically, you know, I'm sitting next to a wise man. You know, you see, they say that without courage, every other virtue lose their meaning. Without courage, all other virtues that you may have will lose their meaning. If you are honest, if you are not courageous enough to be honest, then you cannot be honest.
Take certain bold steps.
If you are kind, you have to be courageous enough to be kind. Because the world will come to you and say, this kindness you are showing, are you sure that if you are kind to someone, they will not use it against you? But you have to say, look, I'm kind, that's where I want to be. Therefore, I will be courageous enough in spite of everything. So courage is the key, okay? But courage to do what? Okay, but before I go on, please, I would say, look, I've mentioned the project ephemerality. I've mentioned vanity project. I've mentioned how people destroy infrastructure, which I've mentioned the need to build people. I've mentioned the vanity project. Look, about 2 years ago, I was in the UK visiting, when 2 local governments actually merged in the UK, in London. Camden local government and East Linton local government, they merged. As we speak today, they are still merged because they realize that they cannot keep on carrying the expenses. So Camden being the largest local government, you brought the chairman, or what they call it chairman, whatever borough, whoever the head of the borough was, you know, and the vice chairman, the vice whatever, came from East Linton. And they reduced the size of the workforce they had.
But in Nigeria, we're canvassing for more states.
Now that we're speaking, that's the problem. As we speak today, you know, listen,
for equity and justice.
Mayor Michael Bloomberg of New York, okay, the 4th richest man in the world, goes to work at times with a train. Look at the way people have convoys of 50 Mercedes Benzes, you know, all those kind of things, you know,
all black.
Latest one, all black, all tinted, all bulletproof, all this, all that, you know. So see, if these are the things we are budgeting for, we're not going to get anywhere. The projects are usually also okay, let me mention bad project execution. Look at Third Mainland Bridge, built around 1995 or thereabout. As we speak now, they had to close some parts of, you know, because now we need to do a major overhaul. If you go to United States, you go to UK, I mean to Europe, and bridges like that, they last for 100 to 150 years before any major repairs. What happened? We have this Julius Berger here that we always say, oh, these guys are too much. But look at what's going on even with the Abuja Airport Expressway. This show started in 2007, and so speaking up to now, not only is it a death trap, but nobody even knows what's going on with the project. So bad project execution. We have expensive projects also. Remember there was a time we had this Abuja runway project that was going to cost 64 billion just to do, and the guys in the House of Reps had to start making noise before it was stepped down. Okay? Almost all Nigerian projects, you know. We have project abandonment. There was a time when the minister, the coordinating minister, Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala, Dr. Mrs. Okonjo, you know, actually said that the government was going to prioritize 10,000 abandoned projects. Now, it calls the question, why would we have abandoned 10,000 projects, for crying out loud? Okay, and perhaps there were some which she decided not to even prioritize. So you see, these are the things we are budgeting for year in, year out, and then there's a problem. Okay, so essentially speaking, which way forward? Fine, courage. Courage to do what? Okay, courage to, see, I believe personally that this goes beyond government, okay? And like they say, people get the leaders they deserve. Why do they say that? Because the leaders will be chosen from amongst us. If, for example, we are made maybe a commissioner in Delta State tomorrow, nobody will say it's too big for you, okay? You understand? But how do you perform when you get there? What do you do? And I always tell people, see, because governance in Nigeria today is a woozy affair. From one seminar, from one conference to the other, from one speech to the other, before you settle down in your office, the village people from your village or the chiefs, they want to come and greet you. You don't even have time to think. Therefore, this is the time to think. And indeed, I tell you what, that people like us, who are a bit on the outside of governance, we have a little bit more credibility. We have a little bit more, even more time on our hands to think about the issues and to also project these ideas forward. So courage. Courage to make the changes that we require. Courage to change fundamentally, to try and begin to change fundamentally what our Nigerians are as a people. So number one, we need to understand that, one, the problems we have will not be solved in a jiffy. The people also need to understand that the problems we have on hand is not such that can be solved just like that. Then the leaders themselves must stop repeating things like, I didn't start the problem. We know you didn't start the problem. But when you say you want to be the leader, then you are taking it on. Now, if you say, I didn't start the problem, you are looking backwards. But you should be looking forward. Someone like Winston Churchill said that of this I am sure, if we enter into a contest between the past and the present, we will surely lose the future. And that's what we're doing. We're losing the future because we're focused on the past. I mean, the problem didn't start today, but